It seems like everyone is leaving Miami and South Florida and moving to this one city. And funny enough, that one city is actually located here in Florida as well. And that city is not Tampa, it's actually Orlando. I think the biggest question is, why in the world would people want to leave Miami and South Florida? I mean, South Florida is where it's at. We have the beaches, the people, the nightlife, the cars, the things to do, the food scene. Like, this is where it's at. The sports, literally. South Florida is the epitome of living in Florida. Why in the world would you leave and then go to Orlando? If you're going to leave, you might as well just leave the state. Orlando's just theme parks. There's really nothing else to do there. It's all tourists. I mean, there's no point in living there, right? No, that's actually kind of wrong. Obviously, I think South Florida is the best place to live in all of Florida. That's for a different video, but Orlando's actually got a lot of stuff going for it. So let's take a step back. Let's look at number one, why are people moving to Orlando? What's the life like there? And, is there a little bit more bang for your buck at the end of the day? Now, when it comes to people leaving and actually moving to Orlando, most of the areas that people are moving to Orlando from are actually out of state. However, Miami is the #2 feeder market for the greater Orlando area. Then when we look at our three major cities here in South Florida, being that of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm, the cities that people are actually leaving to move to, Orlando's right there in the top 5. First up, let's talk about the life in Orlando. Obviously, it's a lot different from that of life here in South Florida. And like we were talking about before, I feel like a lot of people think Orlando's just theme parks and tourists, and there's really nothing else to do. Either you're going to Disney or Universal and you're enjoying the touristy things, or you're doing nothing at all. There's nothing to do. It's like the middle of nowhere. Actually, Orlando's not like that really at all. I mean, there obviously is that, and you have everything to enjoy with the theme parks and the tourism activities. But if you want normal day-to-day life, there is that as well. There's a ton of development going on throughout the greater Orlando area. It seems like everywhere you drive, they're throwing up new strip centers everywhere, new apartment complexes, new communities. I mean, they're building extremely quickly here. On top of that, they do have a great job market as well, especially if you're in the medical field, tech, or even aerospace and defense. I mean, those are some of the major industries on top of tourism and hospitality, obviously. I think the biggest difference though when you're looking at the life in Orlando versus the life in South Florida is the outdoor lifestyle. Now, don't get me wrong, here in South Florida, the outdoor lifestyle is huge, but our outdoor lifestyle really revolves around the beach, being on the water, and boating. While in Orlando, the outdoor lifestyle revolves around lakes, parks, and trails. So really being a little bit more active. Obviously, people are active in South Florida and doing all these different kinds of workouts, running, biking, you name it, we're doing it. But in Orlando, you're just, kind of a little bit slower pace of life is the best way to kind of think about it. Plus, you do have a lot of these lakes that people go and hang out at, which is kind of like their beach in a sense. Speaking of beaches, you aren't too far from the beaches on either coast, whether you're heading east or west. Honestly, you get to, if you really do it right, you can go watch the sunrise in the east, you can go head back, eat lunch at home, then head west and go watch the sunset, which is really cool. But speaking of that outdoor lifestyle, there are a lot of parks and trails as well. So some of the great parks here are the De Leon State Park, Wekiva Springs, and even Lake Underhill. Now, speaking of the trails, according to alltrails.com, there are actually 54 trails in the greater Orlando area. And in the city of Orlando by itself, there's actually 45 miles of off-street trails, 50 miles of signed routes, and 265 miles of bike lanes. So if you want to be out walking, running, jogging, or even biking, this is definitely the city for you. And if you're a foodie, this is going to be the city for you because Orlando is actually ranked the #1 foodie city in America. I know, tough to believe. I wouldn't even rank them the #1 foodie city in Florida. Probably rank South Florida, or maybe even Tampa over them. But there are plenty of different options, whether you're looking for chain restaurants or even holes in the wall. Orlando's really stepping up their game when it comes to the food aspect of it. And honestly, I think really the main reason that people are leaving South Florida to move to Orlando has to be the cost of housing. Obviously, the life in Orlando is great, and that's just an added bonus, but the affordability factor of Orlando, whether it's insurance, cost of homes, new construction, all that, it really makes it almost a no-brainer. So when we take a look at it, the median cost for a home here in South Florida across all property types is $515,000. Meanwhile, in the greater Orlando area, the median sales price for all property types is only $415,000. So that's an easy $100,000 swing right off the bat. Plus, the cost of living is significantly less than that of South Florida. Like if you're going out to eat or just grabbing drinks with friends in Orlando, you'll notice that it is so much cheaper to go out than it is in South Florida. You go out and grab like a drink, maybe an entree and an appetizer, just for one person here in South Florida, you're easily at 75 to 100 bucks without a doubt. Next has to be the insurance. Now look, insurance costs across the entire state of Florida are much higher than that of the rest of the United States. So the average across the US is right around $2,400, while the average here in the state of Florida is right around $11,000, which is crazy. And out of the top 10 most expensive premiums in the entire United States, the top 6 markets are actually located here in South Florida. So number 6 is Port St. Lucie, which doesn't count as South Florida, so I'm not counting it in this. But at number 5, we have West Palm, where the average premium is about $13,000 a year. And at number 1 is Hialeah, where the average premium is $17,606. Honestly, I didn't think Hialeah was gonna be the most expensive, especially because they're not on the water, but still, think about it. You're paying a higher premium to live in South Florida because we're right near the water. Meanwhile, you can go live in Orlando, and it's not uncommon for your home insurance to be anywhere between, about $2,000 to $6,000. So compared, let's just say on the high end, $6,000 compared to that of $17,000. Yeah, that's a huge saving year over year. Next up has to be the new construction options. Now, don't get me wrong, in South Florida, we have a ton of new construction. The only problem is most of them are luxury condos, and these condos start well over $1 million, and some of them are absolutely gorgeous, but condo living just might not be for everyone. Now, when it comes to townhomes and single family homes, we do have some great options and great communities. However, there's not a ton of them, maybe 20 to 30 different options, but they are a little bit more expensive, right around that $600,000 range for townhomes, and you're probably in the low millions to high 900s for single family homes. Meanwhile, here in Orlando, there are numerous options across the entire greater Orlando area. It seems like everywhere you drive by is a brand new construction community. And they start as low as about $264,000 for townhomes, and those are some in Davenport. And they do go all the way up to $13 million, and that's for like your more custom homes. But you actually could be in, the high 3 millions for some of the Toll Brothers communities in the single family aspect, but there's everything and anything in between. That's the really nice thing about it. Most of them are townhomes, single family homes, as well as multi-generational homes, which I think are the most interesting option that they have in the greater Orlando area. So think about it. You have like a single family house with a above garage apartment or a garage apartment, like just something with an ADU or some type of extra unit where you can either live in that smaller unit and rent out the main house, or live in your main house and rent out that smaller unit, or what it was probably intended for is like your family and you live in one side, and then your kids live in and rent that smaller unit from you, and then the whole family is right there. But I think it's a great way to make some extra money. Plus, the prices still aren't bad on them either, especially, with the rising cost of everything in South Florida. To move up to Orlando, buy a multi-generational home for $600,000-700,000 and make a little bit of extra money, or just cut your housing cost in half. And I know one thing that you're definitely thinking of, well, Joe, I live in South Florida because I want that waterfront lifestyle. I want to live on the water and be able to enjoy everything that it has to offer. Now, granted, yes, that's great, but Orlando does have a similar option, and that's that lakefront living. Now, I know it's nowhere near the same, but you do get a lot of similar aspects. Your flood insurance probably isn't as high. Your taxes definitely aren't as high as that of being on the intercoastal. Plus, some people don't even go out on the water. They just like to watch the boats go by. It's still very peaceful living on the lake, and on top of that, you can still go wakeboarding, you can go jet skiing, you can take the boat out, you can go fishing. There's a lot of similar aspects. I know it's nowhere near the same as going out on the intercoastal or going out in the ocean, but it is a happy medium and a good way to make up for it, especially if you're gonna save some money on a home. And I know not everyone who's leaving Miami and South Florida are actually moving to Orlando, but it does seem like a good majority of people are. So let me know in the comments down below. If you were to move out of South Florida, where would you move here if you had to stay in the state of Florida? And if you or anyone you know are looking to buy or sell here in South Florida, Orlando, or Florida in general, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. Call me, email me, text me, we got you.